Okay, let's unpack this. You're navigating your day, taking in information, and there's this kind of subtle hum in the background, isn't there? Stories about AI changing work.
Yeah, definitely. Or maybe you've even seen it like uh close up. A colleague suddenly gets a productivity assistant.
Exactly. That handles parts of their job.
Right.
And it makes you think, well, is this just the next automation wave?
Or is it something deeper? Something fundamentally different about how AI is impacting, our jobs, our livelihood.
Right. And what's fascinating, I think, is nailing down what we mean by AI job displacement now.
Totally. Because our sources, they stress it's not just like robots in factories this time. That's the old story.
No, it shifted.
It's this gradual eating away at tasks
Mm.
and maybe even whole roles eventually.
Across a much wider range of jobs, too.
Yeah, hitting cognitive functions, things we used to think only humans could do. That's the real change.
That is the crux of it. We're seeing
Yeah.
these large language models doing more than crunching numbers,
Right, they're analyzing complex stuff, drafting legal briefs.
generating creative content even. It really feels like the definition of work itself is kind of morphing.
It does. So the big question we're digging into in this deep dive is, does history repeat itself?
Will technology create more jobs than it takes away, like it often
Or,
has before?
or is this time different? Are the negative impacts, the job losses, going to be, well, worse than we've seen?
That really gets to the heart of it, the sheer scale and the type of disruption.
Exactly. And our sources, they give us a pretty solid framework for looking at this. We'll be breaking down the ways displacement happens.
Looking globally, too.
Yeah, geopolitical angles, which industries are feeling it most, how companies are using AI.
The projections for job losses.
Right, those numbers. But also the flip side, job creation, that balance.
And the wider ripples, right? Economic, social impacts.
Definitely. Plus, insights from experts, how labor and regulators are responding.
And finally, potential ways forward. Solutions.
Got it. A full roadmap.
All right, so let's dive into the specifics then. How is AI actually changing work? Like right now. Our source gives us a helpful way to categorize this.
Yes, they do. They talk about a taxonomy of modern displacement. First up is task erosion.
Task erosion. Okay, what's that look like?
So imagine a junior analyst, maybe marketing. Part of their job is pulling together basic reports.
Standard entry-level stuff.
Right. Now, an algorithm can just generate those reports automatically.
Oh, okay.
The analyst role isn't gone, not yet anyway, but a chunk of their tasks automated.
Right, so the job itself hangs on, but AI's taking a piece of it. What comes after that?
Well, that can lead to role cannibalization.
Sounds ominous.
It's basically when enough tasks get eroded, enough pieces get taken away.
That the role itself starts to look unnecessary.
Exactly, the cumulative effect. As more and more tasks within a job description get automated, the whole role itself might just, disappear.
Okay, so a gradual chipping away until the whole thing might crumble. And then there's an even bigger picture. Industry level.
Precisely. That's sectoral realignment. This is when entire industries have to restructure because of AI.
A fundamental shift.
Yeah. And while some old jobs definitely vanish, this is also where totally new kinds of jobs can pop up.
So that sets up the whole displacement versus creation debate we'll get into later.
Exactly. That dynamic.
It's really important to get what the source says, that this isn't simple math. Jobs lost here, jobs gained there.
No, it's much more about rethinking, fundamentally, who does what,
Yeah.
humans or machines.
Okay, now let's zoom out a bit. How does this play out differently around the world? This AI job displacement thing.
Well, if you look at the geopolitical side, there's a real risk of a widening gap.
How so?
High-income countries, they generally have the capital, the computing power, the big data sets.
The infrastructure.
Right, they're better set up to adopt AI quickly and maybe even benefit more. But lower-income nations.
They face bigger risks.
Potentially, yeah. Many rely on export industries with routine tasks, the very things easily automated. And they might not have the resources or infrastructure ready to just create a bunch of new digital jobs to replace them.
That really does paint a worrying picture. Potential for more global inequality. What are the big international groups saying? Like the WEF, OECD.
It's interesting. The World Economic Forum, they kind of see both sides. They project maybe 92 million jobs lost globally by 2030,
Wow.
but also potentially 170 million new roles created.
That's a huge potential net gain then.
Potentially, but they stress the need for a massive reskilling revolution to make that happen. People need the right skills.
Makes sense. And the OECD.
They focus more on the vulnerability of specific jobs, routine-heavy ones, clerks, machine operators, that sort of thing.
Okay.
And the IMF adds another layer. They warn that even if AI boosts productivity, the gains might mostly go to capital owners, not workers.
Worsening income inequality, potentially.
Right.
So we've got these forecasts, some optimistic, some warning about inequality. Are governments actually doing anything yet? Policy changes?
We're starting to see some moves, yeah. In the U.S., the Department of Labor is looking at the WARN Act.
The layoff notice law.
Exactly. Thinking about how it applies when layoffs are driven by algorithms, not just, traditional restructuring.
Thing nuance.
And in the EU, their big AI Act flags workplace algorithms that make hiring or firing decisions as high risk.
Meaning more scrutiny?
Yeah, requiring more human oversight, more transparency. It feels like early steps to manage the fallout without, killing innovation.
Trying to find that balance. Okay, let's get really specific now. Which industries are feeling the heat the most right now?
Customer service is a really obvious one. You see it everywhere.
Chatbots.
Right. Chatbots, virtual assistants, handling tons of those initial simple questions, tier 1 support.
Globally, Manila, Phoenix, wherever.
Yep. And while that clearly displaces humans from those basic tasks, there's a knock-on effect.
Which is?
The human agents left. They end up dealing almost exclusively with the really complex, often emotional issues AI can't handle.
Ah, so the remaining work gets harder.
Potentially, yeah. Leading to more stress, maybe more burnout.
Fascinating. What about media content creation? We hear a lot about AI writing articles, making images.
Absolutely. Generative AI is getting really good at basic stuff, sports recaps, simple marketing copy. It can churn it out fast.
So what does that mean for writers?
Well, it seems to be squeezing entry-level roles particularly. Junior writers, content creators just starting out.
Fewer chances to get a foot in the door.
Could be. And senior editors might find their jobs shifting more towards, curating or editing AI drafts rather than developing writers from scratch.
Changes the whole pipeline. What about professions like law? We think of that as needing deep expertise.
Still seeing big impacts. JP Morgan Chase, for instance, used an AI system called Koyan for it reported it cut something like 360,000 hours of lawyer time annually.
Whoa, that's massive. Does that mean fewer lawyers?
Not necessarily mass layoffs, but it hits specific tasks hard, like finding standard clauses, reviewing boilerplate stuff.
Work junior associates often do.
Exactly. So it frees up senior lawyers for strategy, but again, might impact those just entering the field.
Seeing a pattern there for entry-level roles. Finance and banking must be another hot zone with all that data.
Oh, for sure. AI isn't just for high-speed trading anymore. It's moving into the back office.
Like what?
Reconciliation, compliance checks, risk modeling, all sorts of things. Goldman Sachs put out an estimate that something like 300 million jobs globally have some exposure to AI automation. A huge number.
300 million, that's staggering. Even sectors we think of as physical, like transport, warehousing.
Yep. Self-driving trucks are developing fast. And think about Amazon's warehouse is heavily automated.
Robots everywhere.
Pretty much. Now, McKinsey actually predicts net growth in logistics overall because demand is rising.
Okay, so not all doom and gloom there.
Not entirely, but specific roles like truck drivers could definitely face displacement. So you see some drivers looking into upskilling.
Interrelated tech.
Yeah, like fleet management tech, maybe drone maintenance for delivery drones. Adapting.
So yeah, it's clear AI isn't just some future concept. It's actively reshaping industries now. Unevenly, but it's happening.
Definitely.
Let's pivot then to how companies are actually using AI day to day. What are the big corporations doing?
Well, the sources give some interesting examples from Fortune 500s. Amazon uses AI for predictive restocking, guessing what you'll buy.
And for warehouse robots.
Right. And they reported like a 15% drop in inventory waste. Big saving.
Okay. Others?
Meta, Facebook uses AI constantly for ranking content in your feed. Real time.
They keep us scrolling.
Basically, yeah. They reported a 9% jump in user engagement from it, which means ad revenue.
And Tesla.
AI in their assembly lines. They claim it led to 30% faster production cycles.
Those are some serious efficiency gains. But the implication there
is that efficiency can mean needing fewer people for certain tasks.
Right. Unless companies actively manage that.
Exactly. That's the key. Are they just cutting heads, or are they retraining, redeploying people, cross-training them for new roles created by the tech?
That internal shift is crucial.
Absolutely. Without that focus on human capital, yeah, efficiency gains can just lead to layoffs.
So looking ahead then,
Hmm.
what about the projections? The forecasts for AI-driven job losses, say, out to 2030? I know the numbers are all over the place.
They really are, and you have to take them with a grain of salt, obviously. Forecasting is tough. But our source pulls out a few key ones.
Like,
The World Economic Forum's 2025 data, looking ahead, actually saw that potential net gain we mentioned, 78 million globally.
even with 92 million lost.
Yeah, that specific forecast was net positive. But then you have McKinsey.
What do they say for the U.S.?
They estimated up to 12 million Americans might need to change occupations by 2030. That's potentially double the usual rate of job switching.
Yeah,
Not a churn.
12 million needing new jobs. That's significant disruption,
It is. And Goldman Sachs, they suggested that maybe two-thirds of U.S. jobs have tasks that could be at least partly automated by AI.
which fuels those bigger, scarier job loss headlines.
It contributes to them. Yeah, it shows the potential scope.
So the numbers vary, but the underlying message seems to be significant change ahead.
Definitely. And what really comes through in these reports is how much depends on the speed of our response.
Policy responses.
Yeah, especially things like reskilling programs. How quickly and effectively can we get those up and running? The longer it takes,
The more painful the transition could be.
right, the greater the risk of a prolonged period of displacement.
Which brings us right back to that core tension. Displacement versus creation. History shows tech creates new jobs, right? Telegraph operators gone, network engineers arrive.
That's the historical analogy, yeah. And we are seeing genuinely new roles emerge specifically because of AI.
Like what? Give us some examples.
Okay, things like prompt engineer, someone who gets good at telling AI what to do, that's a hot job title now.
Didn't exist a few years ago.
Nope. Or AI ethics auditor, someone checking systems for bias, data bias detective, similar idea.
Okay, interesting. Roles focus on managing the AI itself.
Exactly. And you see industry-specific ones too. Healthcare needing people to supervise diagnostic AI, agriculture using drone fleet agronomists.
So the AI ecosystem is creating jobs. But the big question,
Can the people losing jobs in, say, customer service easily become AI ethics auditors?
is there a bridge?
That's the absolute crux of it. Just because new jobs exist doesn't mean a smooth switch. It all depends on having accessible transition pathways.
Training, education, support.
Right. Without those effective pathways, like the source says, job creation over here might not help the people displaced over there. You get uneven impacts.
Which leads us straight into the broader economic and social side effects, beyond just job numbers.
Yeah, we could see more of this barbell market effect.
Meaning,
Automation pushes down wages for routine, automatable work at one end, but at the other end, specialized roles, AI experts, data scientists, command huge salaries.
stretching the gap between low and high earners.
Potentially, yeah. And that could really worsen existing inequalities, race, gender, where you live, if access to the training for those high-end jobs isn't fair.
A serious risk. And what about socially? Beyond the economics.
Well, think about the pace. In past shifts, maybe displaced workers found something new within a generation.
Took time.
Right. But now, with AI developing so fast and news spreading instantly on social media,
Everyone hears about layoffs immediately.
exactly, that constant buzz, the anxiety, it might be eroding worker confidence much faster than jobs are actually disappearing right now.
The psychological weight of it.
Yeah, that fear, that uncertainty, it's a real social impact separate from the raw numbers.
Definitely creates a climate of unease. Okay, let's bring in some expert voices. What are the big thinkers in AI saying about all this?
Our sources touch on a few. Jan LeCun has this kind of funny analogy.
Yeah.
He compares automating cognitive tasks to adding skateboards under office chairs. Like, it makes things faster, but doesn't totally change all thinking work. Maybe a bit dismissive.
Maybe minimizes the disruption. Who else?
Darren Acemoglu warns about what he calls so-so-automation.
Toso.
Yeah, where AI gets rid of jobs, but the productivity gains are actually pretty mediocre, so it doesn't really benefit anyone much, just disruption for disruption's sake.
That's a worrying thought.
And then Andrej Karpathy is more pragmatic. He basically says, look, adapting to new tools, that's always been part of many jobs.
Just part of professional life.
Right. Learn the new tool.
So, different takes, but it sounds like a common theme is the tech itself isn't good or bad.
Pretty much. It's a tool. How we use it, how we manage it. That's what determines the outcome. The societal choices, the technical frameworks.
Which logically leads to
Mm-hmm.
how are people trying to manage it? What are unions and regulators doing?
We are seeing responses. Unions like the AFL-CIO, they're starting to negotiate over things like algorithmic scheduling.
AI setting work hours.
Yeah, and exploring ways for workers to have some say, maybe even veto power, over really invasive AI monitoring on the job,
Pushing back on surveillance.
trying to set boundaries. And on the regulatory side, we mentioned the EU's AI Act aiming for human oversight in hiring AI.
Right.
And the White House is also pushing federal agencies to check the AI they use for fairness and bias.
So the goal seems to be not stopping AI, but maybe civilizing it, putting some guardrails up.
That's a great way to put it. Like the source says, it's like putting seatbelts in cars. Not banning cars, but making them safer. Civilizing the tech.
Okay, now let's flip to the positive side too. The sources also talk about AI augmenting us, right? Making humans better at their jobs.
Absolutely. This is a really crucial part of the picture. We're seeing AI as a powerful assistant.
Examples?
Surgeons using AI for real-time image analysis during operations, helping them see things, be more precise.
Like a co-pilot.
Kinda, yeah. Or teachers using adaptive learning software. AI analyzes student progress and helps the teacher personalize lessons for each kid.
Tailoring education.
Exactly, making the teacher more effective.
So it's not just human versus machine. It can be human plus machine.
That's the potential upside.
So for individuals listening, what's the key takeaway? How do you reduce your personal risk of being displaced?
The big message seems to be combining what you already know your domain expertise with, let's call it machine fluency.
Understanding how to work with AI.
Exactly. Doesn't matter if you're an HVAC tech or a cloud engineer. Understanding how AI applies to your field, learning to use the tools, that makes you far less vulnerable.
Become the person who leverages AI, not the person replaced by it.
That's the goal. Enhance your own skills and productivity with it.
That feels more empowering.
Uh,
Okay, finally, let's talk solutions. What concrete steps do the sources suggest for individuals, for society?
Several key things come up. First, reskilling at warp speed. We need faster, more flexible ways to learn new skills.
Like what?
Think partnerships. Community colleges working with tech firms on short, intense boot camps for AI skills, like an 8-week course in ML Ops.
Faster than a 4-year degree.
Much faster. And also more focus on micro-credentials. Employer-recognized badges showing you have specific current skills.
Okay, speed and relevance in training. What else?
Robust safety nets. This is crucial for people during transitions.
Meaning.
Things like wage insurance, helping replace lost income if you take a pay cut during retraining, and portable benefits.
So your health insurance isn't tied just to one job.
Exactly. Making it easier to navigate job changes or training periods without losing essential coverage.
Addresses the insecurity. What about making AI itself fairer in the workplace?
Yeah, transparency and oversight.
Well,
One idea is mandatory algorithmic impact assessments.
companies having to analyze the potential harm before deploying AI.
Basically, yeah. Understanding the risks, and also maybe worker councils that get to see documentation about the AI models being used.
Giving workers a seat at the table, more insight.
Ensuring accountability, aligning incentives better.
And one more. Something about sharing the wealth,
Right, the idea of inclusive ownership, exploring things like shared equity schemes.
where workers get a cut of the productivity gains from AI.
Exactly. Giving staff a direct stake in the benefits of automation. It offers a positive story, not just the fear of displacement benefiting only the owners.
Okay, so a whole package. Fast reskilling, safety nets, transparency, sharing the gains. It sounds like the message is, this isn't inevitable.
That's absolutely it. These solutions argue that widespread, damaging AI job displacement isn't a foregone conclusion. We can shape this.
Thoughtful, proactive measures can make a huge difference.
Exactly.
So wrapping this up, we're in this really interesting spot in 2025, aren't we? There's this palpable anxiety, this perceived threat of AI taking jobs.
But at the same time, maybe an unprecedented opportunity to adapt proactively, to innovate not just technologically, but socially too.
Yeah. History suggests tech doesn't usually lead to permanent mass unemployment, but
But getting a good outcome this time with AI requires real effort, conscious choices from everyone, individuals, companies, governments, educators.
to make sure the benefits are shared widely.
That's the goal, shared prosperity.
So, as you, our listener, think about all this, maybe the question becomes,
Yeah.
how will you engage with this ongoing AI evolution?
Yeah, what steps can you take personally? Cultivating that mindset of lifelong learning, of adaptability.
Because it's not just about learning the tech, is it? It's also about honing those human skills, creativity, critical thinking, emotional intelligence.
Things AI, at least for now, can't replicate easily.
Right. So the story of AI job displacement.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a verdict we just suffer through.
No, it can be a chapter we actively navigate, a transformation we shape through learning, through policy, towards a future where AI actually helps human potential